Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
What? What? All right. Hey, officer. I live here, sir. I live here.
Hey beautiful people, how you're doing today? It's your girl Destiny here, and welcome back to my channel. How you're doing? Hope you guys are doing great. So clearly, the Black Americans are one of the most privileged people. Do you know that? Let me break this down for you, okay? So apparently this video is a video of this man on TikTok, this white European Caucasian man on TikTok. I have to stress that very well trying to make this video, okay? Came on TikTok to talk about how Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and his bullet point, or will I say his points he was trying to make about that the Black Americans should not talk about being broke because they get welfare check of over $600, why the average salary in places like Egypt and other places are lesser than that just welfare check is just that. Anyway guys, I need you guys to see this video and then we'll come back and talk.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more. Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference? People all over the world have to work hard for this money, while people in America are getting more for doing absolutely nothing, just because they are born in the United States. Isn't that a privilege? Being richer than others just because of your birthright? Yes, it is. Oh, and just to be clear, it concerns all Americans, not just Black Americans. All Americans are privileged as hell, and it's about time we acknowledge that Black Americans are no exception. Now, just imagine being born in Harlem, New York, one of the richest cities in the world, in one of the richest countries in the world, and complaining about not being able to get out of the ghetto, while some Middle Eastern refugee has to smuggle himself to America illegally in a cargo bay of the ship, not having home, not having money, not having citizenship, just to get the slightest chance at life that you had since birth. Oh, and he's running from his country because your country destroyed his home, by the way. And he still somehow manages to open up his own business so he can provide for his kids. And you can't get out of the ghetto, really? Man, maybe take a subway? And please, don't give me that excuse about America being racist. Here's the list of richest households in the United States by ethnicity. White people are not even in top 5. It's Indians, Filipinos, Taiwanese, Sri Lankan, Japanese, and then some. How could they all be so prosperous if the country is so racist? Look, America is literally the least racist country in the world. Can you name any other dominantly white country that had black president for 2 terms in a row? No, you can't, because I can guarantee you the rest of the world is actually racist as hell. You're living in the paradise of political correctness. Oh, and it might seem like I'm talking to Black Americans here, but I'm not. I know that majority of Black Americans don't even care about it all. I'm talking to crazy Americans. I'm talking to Americans who actually believe that their country is some racist, villainous hellhole that oppresses people. It's not. Look, your country is alright, I promise. So yeah, you had slavery. Who didn't? Now really, tell me, who didn't? So you have racists in your country, and who doesn't? No, really, name a single country without racists. I'll wait. Stop focusing on yourself so much. This is destructive narcissistic tendency that destroys your country. You have 2 kind of whack jobs in USA. First kind thinks that you can invade any other country in the world because you're force of good. And another kind thinks that you can appropriate culture and history of any other country in the world and paint it black because you're the force of evil and you have to constantly atone for your sins before black people. Well, guess what? You don't get to do any of those things. Keep your greedy hands off Middle Eastern oil and European history. Oil is black, white history figures are not. You're not villains, but you're not heroes either. You're just regular people. Just regular people who are born into insane privilege the rest of the world can only dream of. And that's exactly why.
So let me know your thought about this video down in the comment section. Do you really think the Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world? I'm going to share my thought on this, but this video is going to be a 2-part. So in this video, we're going to see the Black Americans or black people respond to this claim this man has. And then let's hear what they have to say, then I'll come back and talk.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
I'm not gonna lie, we might be cooked as a society, because this man just got on the internet and spewed the same welfare queen, black people are lazy, black people are this, black people are that nonsense, and got 10K likes. Like, we might be cooked as a society, for real. Bro said so much misinformation about a lot of shit. He literally said that Harlem is one of the richest cities in the world, and y'all ate that shit up. Like, what the fuck? Bro was pushing the model minority myth the entire video, and then disregarded 400 years of slavery, the entire Jim Crow era, the war on drugs, the school to prison pipeline, all this shit, and said America is not racist. Like, dog. And that's not even the crazy part, because the day you posted this video is the same day that that white old man who shot an innocent black kid who rang his doorbell turned himself in and got released on bail. Like, you literally cannot make that up. Like, what?
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
I don't feel like doing the work for you, but I actually just looked this up because I wasn't sure of the statistic. And at this point, it's equal. 39.8% of blacks who have enrolled in those programs receive some type of government assistance. Supplemental nutrition assistance program, which is a food benefit. Everybody has the right to eat, right? And 39.8% of whites, same conversation. What you are talking about, sir, is supplemental Social Security income. That is the 617. Those are for people who are unable to work, the disenfranchised, the shut in, those with mental health issues, those who are disabled. You receive that benefit because you qualify for some mental or medical issue that is causing you to be able to qualify. Because the average American doesn't qualify. And I want you to know $617 literally is less than what most Americans pay in day-to-day taxes. Please stop talking about that which you don't know. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have gotten all the way into you. I didn't want to be rude. I wanted to try to have a conversation. But your conversation that you're having is ill-informed. Because I know many black people who have never been on welfare, never received government funding, and have never lived in the hood. Check your privilege.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
Did you know that white Americans use the most welfare? And I'm a black woman who lives in America, and I promise you that welfare ain't giving me no $617 fucking check. I have to go to work. So, what are you talking about? Mind your business and stay over there in where you at, Russia, Ukraine. Stay over there. Mind your business. Or shit costs more. If we're so privileged, why are all our men sitting in prisons for shit they didn't do? If we're so privileged, if we're so free.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
Bet, please do tell me how privileged black Americans are.
Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference?
You missed already. I guess cost of living just doesn't exist. Cost of living in Mexico compared to the United States, Ukraine compared to the United States, Egypt compared to the United States, and Vietnam compared to the United States. So while we can just say, oh, these are very big economies and look at the difference in wage compared to the welfare checks, we must take into account how much money it actually costs to live in a given society in order to determine whether or not these things are disproportionate. And given that in every fucking country you just mentioned, the cost of living is so much lower than the United States, you can understand why the difference is there. Also, this video is supposed to be about how privileged black people are, but the first thing he talks about is welfare checks. Also claiming that a group of people are privileged because a welfare check was set at an amount that's higher than another country's wage is dumb, considering the people that live in the country with the welfare checks are considered poor for that country in that economy that they need to live in. So saying, oh my god, you're considered poor here, but you wouldn't be in a different country is as dumb as saying, oh, you were just raped. Well, guess what? People have died, so you must be privileged.
People all over the world have to work hard for this money, while people in America are getting more for doing absolutely nothing, just because they are born in the United States.
Miss number 2, it'd be a damn shame if the majority of people on welfare are actually working. Because, oh yeah, while we can complain about how high the welfare checks are compared to other countries, it isn't even enough to live in America off of, which forces people who are even working full-time to still work a job while being on government assistance. Again, because while we can play Oppression Olympics, context matters.
Now just imagine being born in Harlem, New York, one of the richest cities in the world, in one of the richest countries in the world, and complaining about not being able to get out of the ghetto, while some Middle Eastern refugee has to smuggle himself to America illegally in a cargo bay of the ship, not having home, not having money, not having citizenship, just to get the slightest chance at life that you had since birth.
It's a damn shame you don't even realize how stupid this just was. Level 1, let's talk about your logic. This essentially boils down to don't ask for anything more if you're already receiving more than somebody else. Which, for obvious reasons I would hope, makes zero fucking sense. That Middle Eastern refugee who had to smuggle himself on a ship in order to make it to America has it measurably better than a Southeast Asian kid who will live and die in the same village buried under plastic and trash from our pollution. Does that mean we should make no effort to make it so that Middle Eastern refugees shouldn't have to smuggle themselves into the country to have a good life? Does that mean that those Middle Eastern refugees should just shut up and acknowledge the fact that they're more privileged than somebody else? No! And if you say yes, then you're counteracting everything your entire video is about. Hence why Oppression Olympics is a dumb game to play. Level 2 of why this stupid. Let's run the actual numbers. Seeing as you mentioned refugees coming to America, let's compare them to black people in America. Again, context matters. After 5 years in the United States, refugees have a median household income of $22,000. After 15 years, that grows to $37,000. And after 50 years, it grows to $67,000. Black people in the United States had a median household income of $30,400 in 1970. 51 years later, that number is $48,297, which means if we run the numbers on that, in the same amount of time it has taken refugee household income to grow by $45,000, black household income has grown by $17,897. So if I wanted to stoop down to your level and assume that money, devoid of all context, immediately denotes privilege, who is more privileged in the United States? This very point is something that you go on to contradict yourself on 2 seconds later when you go on to say,
and please, don't give me that excuse about America being racist. Here's the list of richest households in the United States by ethnicity. White people are not even in top 5. How could they all be so prosperous if the country is so racist?
Bucko, I don't even think you realize what you're saying here.
This is exactly why context matters, because I'm not sure what privilege you're trying to preach to black people about, when not only do all the other Americans make more money than black Americans, average Americans make more money than black Americans. Would you really make the argument that for any other demographic in any other country, them making less than what the average person in their country makes is them having privilege? No, the hell you wouldn't, which is why you try to bring it to a worldwide context, because as soon as you start talking about American context, you get blown the out of the water and start trying to disprove racism by Obama.
Can you name any other dominantly white country that had black president for 2 terms in a row?
Who's gonna tell him that the next president started a rumor that he wasn't even born here simply because he was black?
Now we can talk about how a lot of these immigrant groups you mentioned have higher rates of college degrees, which is something that is quite literally selected for prior to immigration into this country, meaning a disproportionate amount of them coming over with education already, which is why they make so much more than the native-born population. We can talk about how Asian Americans have not faced the same institutional barriers as black people. We can talk about Harlem and how you're apparently confused that many black people can't make it out the ghetto.
And you can't get out of the ghetto, really? Man, maybe take a subway?
When the city was redlined to high hell. East Harlem had the 7th lowest household income among 55 other New York neighborhoods, and almost 1/3 of households lived below the federal poverty line. And how it was literally the birthplace of the very Renaissance that was an artistic backlash to intense anti-black racism in the country. We can talk about the fact that while yes, slavery and racism exist in countries all over the world, the slavery that built the new world was chattel and racialized, which is something that was unique, that was not found in the Middle East, in Africa, or in Europe prior. But something tells me that if you don't even have the brain cell count to realize that you just made an entire video about why black people are privileged while using the same racist, factually incorrect statements that have been used since 20 years after slavery to justify why black people are in such shit positions, then something tells me you're not ready for that conversation. I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
Craziest part about that is I'm not even surprised by what he's saying. I'm not. I've come to the realization this is just the fucking world we live in. You got to deal with people like him, bro. The part that fucked me up is he actually believes what he's saying. It's not that he said it. We done heard people that look like that say that before, right? It's the fact that he actually believes what the he's saying in that video. That's the part that's me.
Americans, not just black Americans. All Americans are privileged as hell, and it's about time.
Duh. This is so sad. I hope it's no surprise to you to understand that people born in first world countries have more opportunities and privileges than those born in third world countries. If I'm someone who lives in a third world country like Haiti, I cannot compare those to the struggles of somebody who lives in a first world country like France. Because though they are basically caused by the same thing, government, money, power, control, they're vastly different. However, if I move to France and live there for a couple of times for years long enough to understand the climate, I can then start to compare privileges with the people that live in France. Racial privileges, financial privileges, location privileges, because all these things exist. But you knew that, right? Because you're not just saying trigger words to get people to watch your video. Because you don't actually think that using black people to monetize your account is good, right? Because I hope you're not really using them to make something for yourself. Because I would like to think that you would like to be known as somebody who is honest and true with your word. Somebody who's knowledgeable enough that people respect, and not somebody that's using a whole demographic of people as a trigger to monetize their account. We're not doing that here, right? I hope not. But since we're talking about black people, because though you say, although, like, I'm not just talking about black Americans, I'm talking about all Americans, you're talking about black Americans, you got beef with us. When you search those welfare checks and who was receiving those welfare checks, what was the demographic that you found that was the highest? And I'm genuinely asking, because I don't even think you made a research about that. When you check those countries and the amount of money they made on a monthly basis, did you compare it to their state of living, to their cost of living? And now, did you compare that $600 that you said apparently people from New York are getting? Did you compare that to their cost of living in New York? When you were looking at all the privileges that black people have living in New York, did you check about gentrification? Did you look at the housing crisis and the rise of rent and how many black people are homeless because they cannot pay their rent? Did you look at the statistics of black people getting evicted in their neighborhoods? Or not even just black people, people of color as a whole getting evicted out of their neighborhoods because of gentrification and they cannot pay for it? No? Back on the welfare case, if you are so intrigued to understand that the government is giving so much money to black people, right? $600, yay. Did you look up any other groups of people getting more than $600 from the government? And for that $600 that black people are receiving from the government, apparently, did you check to see how the government takes it back double or triple over? No, you didn't. Because once again, you didn't look at the cost of living. You made this video because you know black people like me, and I couldn't help myself. But black people like me would help you monetize your account. Because black people drives your views. Because apparently it is black people that give you the platform that you need. The platform that you desperately want. And instead of portraying yourself as somebody that we can rely on for information, like someone who's just entertaining and I would like to follow just because of who they are, you instead want to come off as somebody who likes to use black people. Because that's what black people are to you. A means to an end. Wow, what a privilege for me, huh?
And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference? People all...
Tell me I'll be coming on here and just trying to make incendiary content for your clicks, likes, and views. But the problem is that y'all keep playing into problematic stereotypes that me and my people have had to face for God knows how long. Because you started your video by saying that black Americans are the most privileged people in the world. And then go to talk about welfare, which an easy trip around Google disproved immediately. Not only are black people not the largest group of people who receive welfare, black people have largely been left out of governmental policies that help uplift people out of poverty. Again, it's just a simple trip around Google. And the way y'all rely on black outrage to get your attention is really gross and really disgusting, especially when the information is sitting right there. I suggest a hobby. Try making cooking videos. Everybody is so creative.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
I'm a firm believer if you don't know the you're talking about, don't talk about it. But since you decided to open your mouth and talk about black people in America, let me give you some education. Here we go. Black Americans are some of the most... Shut the f***. I'm so sick and tired of hearing white people say that we're the most privileged people in the world. And then they pull out statistics of like the household medium of income. The highest comes from people who are people of color. Or how people have come from other countries and made something of themselves. Great. However, you fail to recognize the fact that there are people who come into America who get tax benefits. You fail to recognize the fact that of those people that you have listed off that are some of the wealthier house homes, the median income being 100,000. The people above that, the 1%, yeah, majority of them are white. Let's just look at this list right here. The richest people in America. Their net worth in billions of dollars. I wonder if anybody up here is black. Hell, better yet, a person of color. The answer is no, in case you're wondering. I mean, let's not even talk about that welfare thing that you were bringing up to try to discredit black people. Among the population that receives welfare, 43% are white. And then it breaks down to 28% being Hispanic, 23% being black, 8% being Asian and Native. And you are audacious enough to bring up affirmative action. Well, white women are its biggest supporters. So what privilege were you talking about that we have? It's perplexing, really. Like, where? Where do we benefit in this country? What benefits are created that have actually helped us? Let's not even talk about what you brought up with slavery. Because yes, every country in the world has had slavery, correct. But not every country has had chattel slavery, and therein lies the difference. In fact, majority of those countries in which you are describing to would be labeled as indentured servitude. I know, there's a difference between the two. You may feel it's slight, but it's significantly more. Indentured servitude had an end date, whereas chattel slavery passed on to children and children's children and children's children's children. So what it sounds like to me is that you're doing a bunch of pandering, talking out of your ass, having no real ground to stand on, just wanting to talk for the sake of talking because you feel, I don't know, good about yourself. So unless you've walked a mile in our shoes, experienced what we've experienced, or even have an inkling of what's going on, don't mention how.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
Let's critically analyze this video. I'm going to be speaking on different parts of this video, so I suggest you go back and watch it. America has the #1 GDP in the world, but is the 21st most expensive country to live in. Mexico has the 15th highest GDP, Ukraine the 53rd, Vietnam the 40th, and Egypt the 34th. Out of these countries, the US is still most expensive to live in. These countries aren't comparable because of how different our GDPs are. We can acknowledge that America as a whole has many privileges, but also that racial hierarchy and disparities in America exist. Americans do not receive welfare like stimulus or paychecks. Welfare is a range of programs sponsored by the federal government in order to assist individuals or families who cannot support themselves. This can be due to financial instability, inability to find work, etc. He describes welfare as a birthright, but welfare isn't something that we're granted from birth. The only immediate right that Americans have when it comes to welfare is the right to apply, and applicants can be denied. As of late 2021 and early 2022, an average of 59 million Americans receive government assistance, and of that, 13 million live in poverty and don't receive assistance at all. And though America has the #1 GDP in the world, countries in Europe are creating larger welfare systems for their citizens. He says Harlem is the richest city in the world. Harlem resides in New York City, which is one of the richest cities in the world. But it is a borough in Manhattan, and with 29% of its residents being below the poverty level, it makes it the second poorest borough in Manhattan. And Harlem isn't the only poor neighborhood with black residents. Though black Americans make up 13 to 14% of America's population, they make up 20% of America's poverty rate. The top 10 poorest cities within the United States have high populations of black residents. Flint, Michigan was recorded as the poorest city within the United States, having 37.3% of its population of 80,628 residents be in poverty. Of that 80,628, around 48,376 residents are black. But these are only a few examples of the poverty predicament within the black community. He then compares Middle Eastern immigrant struggles to black American struggles. I think it's completely unfair to compare two struggles in order to downplay one. While I do believe we should acknowledge the many struggles that Middle Eastern people are put through by America, I think we should also acknowledge the reason many black Americans are still in the predicaments that they are in today. And that's because over generations and years, America continuously implements new systems in order to keep black Americans in poverty, under control, and oppressed. Redlining, black codes, prison to school pipelining, etc. It's also completely dismissive and disingenuous to claim that racism isn't a benefactor to the oppression of black people because Asian Americans make the highest median income rate. That perpetuates a negative myth about the Asian American community. I also think it's completely disingenuous to make those claims when black people are at the bottom of the data used, and when the data isn't updated. He goes on to say that we're privileged because of Barack Obama. Having one black president out of 46 does not mean that we live in a politically correct society. The effect of the war on drugs is still prevalent in many low-income areas. We don't have free health care. Black Americans are getting rejected from their jobs due to where they live and due to their names. And we have many politicians across the United States trying to erase culture and history of black Americans in education. We can acknowledge that America has many privileges in comparison to the countries across the globe. But we also have to acknowledge that many individuals and groups of people within the United States do not benefit from those privileges.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it.
I would sooner season my food with shards of glass
than listen to a European man explain to me how black Americans are privileged. But that's just me.
Clearly, is a unanimous decision by the black Americans. He knows nothing of what he's talking about. Let me know your thought about this down in the comment section. Do you think the black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world? Go ahead and share your thought down in the comment section. Feel free to share your opinion, but please, please, please do it respectfully. You don't have to disrespect anybody for you to air your opinion. So as you share your opinion, let's be respectful to each other. And I want to give it to each and every one of you guys that watch my video and drop comment. Like, I love and respect you guys so much. I love the way we have conversation down in the comment section. So respectful. Like, thank you guys so much for making this place a safe place where we can have conversation. Here is my own thought on it. First off, I want to say that I totally don't agree with what this man said. Like, for me, it made 0 points. And this is where I'll say people that are not in that community, or if you're not in a community or in a country, try and understand and ask people that are there to educate you so that you can be well informed before you make your opinion. I know this is the age of social media where everybody comes to say freedom of speech and air their opinion and say whatever they want to say. But before you come to say whatever you want to say, go do your research and know what you're talking about. Growing up in Nigeria, which is in the African mother continent, Africa, when I was much younger, it used to bother me that why are people poor in America? Because the dream that was sold to us by media was that America was this beautiful place where everything works and everything is just rosy and rosy, like it's a place to be. It's the American dream. But growing up and even recently start educating myself on it, when he's talking about the welfare pay to people, and clearly I thank that sister for educating us about the welfare, that it's not just for all Americans can go and apply for welfare. Is actually certain group of people that cannot work, and obviously you have to prove that. When growing up, I used to say, oh God, $1,000, that's a whole lot of money in my head, because why? I was converting it to Nigerian naira, so it would be a whole lot of money. And what a lot of people don't know, a lot of people don't understand, the standard of living in America is ridiculously high. Like, I have a friend in the States that our rent for a month is what will pay my rent for the entire year in Nigeria. And then you want to now compare $600 over there and $600 in Nigeria. Like, you can't meet the quality of life you get with a $600 in Nigeria and America is like, so for me, when I heard that was his own first take, I was just like, this guy is clueless. He doesn't understand how this currency, quality of life, and even cost of living is. Like, I just cut it off. Then for him to talk about, oh, they want to play the racist card and all that, and this is why I would say, if you're not from the community and you refuse to educate yourself, then don't speak about it. And thank you guys. I want to thank you guys here on my channel for really educating me on these things, and even creating this type of videos that really made me to understand how the systemic racism and the white privilege, most black people experience racism, and it is what it is. And for this man not to identify that, but how can he identify that? He's a white male in Europe. Like, duh, I don't expect him to even understand racism. Like, why? He has never experienced it. He has never had a taste. He will never have a taste of it. So for him to speak on racism, like, I just feel like he should chew his mouth up. Whether we like it or not, racism exists, but I know some black people don't want to face the reality that it is what it is. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why racism is not going anywhere anytime soon, because some white people, did I say black people the other time? Yeah, I meant to say white, okay? So some white people still believe that it's not a thing, that black people are just overstretching the whole thing, the whole racism situation. Anyway guys, let me know your thought about this video down in the comment section. Love to know what you think, because hey, that's what we do here. We have conversation, so go ahead and share your thought down in the comment section. Feel free to share this video with somebody that you want to be part of the conversation, and please give this video a thumbs up. Please like this video because this helps YouTube to push up my content, and that will be you supporting your girl. So please smash the like button. You can also support this channel by giving a super thanks or joining the membership. That will also be you supporting your girl. So please do that. That will be really helpful. With that all said, guys, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Deuces.